Now, I think it's fair to say that Bob Iger is nothing more than a liar, somebody that really tries to manipulate the shareholders and the general public to really keep them following in Disney's presence to see exactly where they're going in the future, stringing them along. And this is exactly why the other day when he talked about quieting down the noise, about all of the agenda-driven stuff, and how then, he goes on to really further enhance his overall DEI agenda with all the upcoming reboots, the remakes, the live-action stuff from the animated counterparts that are actually getting greenlit as we speak, and still releasing Snow White 2024. It's all the more to show you that Bob Iger never means what he says, and it's only strictly meant to convince the public and the shareholders to still follow Disney. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into what's going on with Bob Iger. Now, we know that Bob Iger has been speaking more directly to everyone that's a fan of Star Wars, Marvel, and Disney in general, right? He's trying to reassure those that may have been very unsatisfied as of late with those brands, as well as people that have been walking away from those brands. A lot of people are unsubscribing from Disney Plus, throughout 2023, per the last earnings call. Over 12 million abandoned ship, and there's more that are actually expected to unsub throughout the remainder of this year, which, by the way, he will be updating on that by the first week of November in the last earnings call. But what's even all the more unveiling has a lot to do with what Bob Iger just recently stated about his thoughts on the fandoms of everything Star Wars, Marvel, and more. Now, with Bob Iger currently in full damage control mode, convincing the shareholders that Disney is in a great position right now, one major development has to do with what he had to say about Kathleen Kennedy and the fan response to, of course, firing her. Iger went on to deliver the following. We here at Disney and how we overlook Lucasfilm is our number one priority to bring Star Wars up to speed on the same status of Marvel. We are fully aware of the rise and criticism of Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy, and I can confirm that we always have a contingency plan in place for those that have been curious if the time comes to use it for a new leader to take over at the company and run all things Star Wars. But that's not our concern right now. We are fully aware that those that are unsatisfied with Kathleen Kennedy's efforts with Star Wars are nothing more than a minority, and it's something that we try our very best not to pay too much attention to in order to focus on our vision instead. You can't give in to fan demands, especially when it comes to a very small percentage. Now guys, let me stop here quick before I get to the next thing that he actually discusses, is that we already know that Kathleen Kennedy has been banished in segments over at Disney, such as not being able to visit the sets of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not being able to have any kind of influence anymore over Kevin Feige and his view of the Marvel Universe as well. And specifically, she will no longer be producing specific Star Wars projects. Now, that's not to say that she's no longer present at this time. We do know that Bob Iger, from what it seems, he is rooting for her. We do know that the board is split. There are a number of board members that want her out. There's also a number of board members that are actually rooting for Kathleen Kennedy and love her welcome over at Lucasfilm. So, what's even all the more alarming is exactly what Bob Iger believes in, or what he's trying to make us feel like what he believes in. It's always hard to get a read on this guy, and I always like to say this. It's always hard to get a read on Bob Iger. It's like reading wallpaper. You can't get a read on this guy because he always lies. He always means something else whenever he says something, just like the whole quieting down the noise thing, which could mean nothing more than making things a tiny bit less woke, but not getting rid of it entirely. That could very well mean all what he was actually getting at. So moving onwards, this is where things get even more complex and more involved with everything Marvel, Star Wars, and more, and what Bob Iger had to say further. Now, we know that Kathleen Kennedy, there's no doubt about this, the majority do not like her, and he still is on that trend of saying that it's a minority. that it's nothing more than a small percentage. And that's just in the face of the fandom. He's just throwing it in their face. He really is. So, moving to the next thing here, he goes on to elaborate further. It's just not good for our business models such as Disney+. We believe that Kathy has done an outstanding job with the latest Ahsoka series, making a great celebration and completed goal for an all-female-led show, and we could not be more excited about The Acolyte, which will be yet another series focusing on strong and empowering women that will be great for the film industry, and we will continue to make more examples of that in the Star Wars world. Those that do not agree with Kathy and her efforts is not a concern to us, as we have been seeing great ratings for the latest Ahsoka and what's coming for some of our new films in light of that and what to expect for The Acolyte. Our goal is to focus on equality, inclusion, and fairness in the Star Wars world and in a galaxy far, far away. That is our focus right now to make things right. We will continue to pursue these strategies on our end to lead Disney into a new, successful era of films and television, especially for our streaming model, Disney Plus, as well. Now, again, I mean, IGER is a textbook example of a liar. That's why I always like to call him Bob Liger. I know it's getting old, but, you know, that's what I call him. And we know that he has been unhappy in some areas of what Kathleen Kennedy had done before in the past, such as, you know, what she did with Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny over at Lucasfilm, what she did with the sequel trilogy for Star Wars over at Lucasfilm. You know, different elements of that with The Rise of Skywalker, specifically. You know, Bob Iger, he was the same liar back in 2018 when he said that The Last Jedi only underperformed because it was a frequency issue, that people were getting too much Star Wars and too quickly, when in reality the movie was just flat out horrible. I mean, it's the actual truth, and it's something that they will never admit, seemingly. So anyway, this is where matters get even worse, is that we know that Bob Iger is going to continue to say what he has to say to convince shareholders and the general public to stay put, to stay in that position of following Disney, for those that are still on the fence, right? And so that's why I don't take a word for whatever he says as either true or, you know, 100% of what he believes in. You know, it's really hard, like I said before, to get a read on Bob Iger. It always is, and that's just classic Bob Iger. You know, for those of you that don't know, he was a weatherman after all. I don't know if you guys knew where he came from, but he has come a long way from a weatherman to a lying Disney CEO. It's just quite crazy how that evolution has really, you know, processed over the years. So overall, guys, I would really love to, you know, really see all of you chime in below in the comments, you know, what you think about Kathleen Kennedy, her impact on all things Star Wars, her relationship, or friendship, I should say, with Kevin Feige of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.